open your mind up. I can't stress enough. Like the world is your oyster, literally.
Actually, literally. Oh, yes,
Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Growing Out Loud with your favorite host, Daisy Ketel. Drum rolls, please. Oh my goodness, I must have the most amazing audiences because your feedback is always great. Thank you. Thank you so much for your feedback, for your comments, for the side WhatsApp messages. We're just like, Daisy, keep going. Thank you for watching all my episodes or some of them. And if you're yet to catch up on any or the podcasts that we've produced, I think we have about 4 published. This should be the 5th one. And again, I will always say, they say that the cost of entry is embarrassment. And I'll keep saying over and over, producing a podcast is humbling but exciting, and I'm loving it. And the more I do it, the better I get at it. And today I am again alone on set. And I think I would love to just be merging some episodes with guests and some where we just talk about principles that can help us grow. Remember that this podcast is a space where we talk about growth in all aspects. We have conversations around career growth, we have conversations around personal development, we have conversations around growing your business, getting from one level to the next. Remember that we say here that Growing Out Loud is a podcast for the dreamers who do. So my kind of audiences are people with big dreams and people who wake up every day and have a proper understanding of what their dream is and are taking a step each and every single day to get to that point. And this is just a space where we come and sharpen each other's axes, we come and learn, we come and even just get different perspectives. You see, the thing that I'm appreciating lately is just how important it is to open your mind up. I can't stress enough how many times I have conversations with my clients mostly, and they'll always reference thinking bigger and bigger, thinking bigger. Like the world is your oyster, literally. Anyway, that's why we're here, and that's why we have this podcast up and running. It's just for us to appreciate that the world is our oyster and to understand, okay, fine, we have this big dream, we have this big vision. How do we get to achieving it, right? A step at a time. So today, I know I often say that I'm a personal branding consultant amidst other hats that I wear. And for those of you who have been following me and my journey on LinkedIn for well over a year, I think a year, 6 months now, you maybe have heard me talk about it so often that we have an idea of what personal branding is and actually maybe even know how to grow your own personal brand. But I also understand that my audiences are increasing every so often. Now we are at, I think, 25,000 followers on LinkedIn. There were not always 25,000. So there's also a lot of new audiences that have joined me, right? And now this is me just trying to catch us up on, going back to the basics really of what a personal brand is. Why is it important for you to build a personal brand? And just all the many questions that come up every so often, right? That is our conversation today. So let's start from the very basics of what a personal brand is. A personal brand is a mix of who you are to mean your personality and what you do professionally, right? Other people, actually, this is Jeff Bezos' definition. Jeff Bezos' definition of a personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. However, for me, I find that with Jeff Bezos' definition, we are more or less describing what a reputation is as opposed to what a personal brand is. And this is the thing, there's a difference between a reputation and a personal brand. A reputation, you have no control over. And I love to give this example every so often. You just might be known for something. If it's in the office, maybe people know you as that person who always comes to work late. Gen Z's, hello. Or people might know you as that person who's friendly and has a bunch of friends here and there and is always connecting with people quite easily, like Daisy here. Or maybe you are known for keeping to yourself. You are known for being highly structured. You are known for being spontaneous. And you'll often hear statements like this come up. Ah, ni Daisy tunangoja. Let's just give her 3 hours. Or, ni Daisy tunangoja. We have to get there. She said 7:30. We actually need to be there at 7:30 because we know we'll find her there already, right? Stuff like that is what we call a reputation. It has been formed by your past actions. Already you've just formed a perception in people's minds. However, with a personal brand, these are intentional actions and steps that you are taking to sort of control how people perceive you, right? So, and that's now where it gets a bit structured and a bit professional, right? Because when we speak about building a personal brand, we actually want people to know us for certain things. And more often than not, when we say personal branding, people think now we want you to be an influencer and put your life out there and now start talking about your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend and your family, you know? If that is what you want your brand to be around, then that's the case. If that is not, it does not mean that if you're a private person, you cannot build a personal brand. Let me explain what this means. Yeah? Okay, so let's look at what a personal brand is in terms of structure, right? So, say, you see how we said it's a mix of who you are and what you do professionally? This is where that comes in. For example, you are a HR student in campus right now. And then because of social media and because of creators like Daisy here, who put out content that more often than not will educate you and maybe teach you a thing or two, you start appreciating that there's something like LinkedIn. And beyond just going on LinkedIn to look for attachment or internships, you go on LinkedIn. While doing that, you realize, oh, there are actual creators here who create content every so often. And now you realize, okay, I want by the time I'm done with campus that I am known for something, or at least when I walk into an office and I tell them I'm a HR student, beyond just having my papers, there's something I can show for it, right? Then you decide, fine, let's start building your personal brand, right? So, how do you go about it? You see, I mentioned one thing. You are a campus student. Let's say you're a girl, because it's easier for me to speak from the perspective of a girl, right? You are a girl, you are a HR student, and you're, say, in third year campus. What comes when you start building your personal brand? This is what we could do. You could start talking about your experiences as a campus girl, right? That by itself is building a brand around people knowing you for being a young person, right? You can talk about your experiences in a public setting, in a public university. If you're in a public university, you could speak about your experiences in a private institution if you're in a private institution. You see this day in the lives that we see on TikTok every so often, and then there's a young lady or whoever the creator just taking us about their day. They're sort of building their brands, whether they realize it or not. That's one aspect. Remember, again, I'll take you back to the basics. It's a mix of your personality and what you do professionally. So fine, you could easily talk about your experiences. And I know you're about to tell me, Daisy, I go to on LinkedIn and talk about a day in the life of a campus student. What do you mean? I mean, LinkedIn is for busy professionals. Fair, you're right. It's a platform where we sort of have serious conversations. But again, remember, the people that are on LinkedIn are human beings as well. So they still would connect with you based on, and I know I'm jumping the gun a bit here, but remember, people also love to connect with people that they feel are relatable to them, right? And these are the same users of LinkedIn. So they will connect with you because there's you are able to, there's some form of relatability with you, So you could come and just structure and say, so my days often start at 8 and they end at 5. Today I had a lesson on ABCD. This is what I picked from it. I didn't realize this and this and this, based on the class you had that day. That's a simple way of building your brand. So imagine talking about that today, and then tomorrow you come and talk about your experiences as a 20-year-old in navigating life, and living away from home for the first time. Stuff like that. That's how you slowly build your brand. And I want you to notice something. Here we have talked about you speaking about what it is you're learning in school, but we have also talked about just your experiences as a campus girl who's 20 and doing life in 2025. You get, this is how you now start breaking in, or rather breaking down your personal brand. And you see, we have controlled the narrative. Personal branding is about controlling the narrative because, yes, probably you could be having a boyfriend, for example, but you are not necessarily talking about your boyfriend, or you could have family members that you spend quite a lot of time with, but you're not necessarily speaking about your family members. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that you have not shown us who you are, because you have talked about your day-to-day experiences as a campus girl who's 20, right? I think you see, so we can still bring out your personality, we can still show aspects of your life without necessarily talking about all the intricacies of your life and the people involved and the people around it, right? This is me trying to speak to all the introverts who are afraid of putting themselves out there. You might be curious how I got into personal branding myself, right? For me, actually, building my brand was out of necessity. It was a way of me surviving. Let me give context. You may or may not know that I had a laundry and cleaning business before that I had to stop, then went did an internship in the hopes of getting a permanent and pensionable job, just so that I can go back and take a loan that will service my laundry and cleaning business. Okay? But a lot of life happened in between, and I had to shut down my business. This laundry and cleaning business, by the way, was started just using the resources that I had at home. Basically, it was a remote, or rather, we didn't have a physical shop. I was using my mom's machine and our home as literally the premises of of my business. Then fine, things didn't pan out. I had to shut down, right? Then I now figured, okay, fine. If I might as well start a business, I need one that I can start with no money, because at the time I was broke and in my mom's house, so no money. And I needed something that didn't require me to have starting capital. And guess what? I figured, okay, fine. There's Wi Fi at home. My background is in communications and PR. I'm pretty good at it. I remember my experience from my internship wanting to build the brands of the government officials back there, because I felt like, the public, is it the government and guys who work in the executive could do a better job of actually showing us what it is that they do qua ground, right? So I felt like these guys need a better job, need better comms. But I didn't get that opportunity, but I still had the interest. And I realized they're not the only ones who should rather tell their stories. Guys in private sector need to tell their stories as well. So it's like, okay, I need to identify people who want to build their brands online and get people to recognize them for what it is that they do. And it's not just about being recognized for what you do, but also what impact are you having? How are you changing people's lives? And I know using the word changing people's lives is a big, it sounds big, but at times changing people's lives is just making their day a bit better. Anyway, I digress. So I figured, fine, let me see how I can get people to build their brands. So I quickly realized, okay, before I build someone else's brand, I need to have proof of concept. And what is proof of concept if not building my own brand myself, right? So you know what I did? I just went online, realized, okay, the kind of people I'm trying to look for are likely to be found on LinkedIn, right? I was like, okay, tick LinkedIn. So how do you start showing up as a creator on LinkedIn? And I know LinkedIn can be terrifying and it feels very stuck up, and it feels very, I need to have 3 PhDs by the time I'm 30 and a job that I'm earning 1 million a month for me to show up on LinkedIn and tell people stuff, right? Wrong. So at least that's what I also thought initially. That's why I was aiming for the guys up there who've already accomplished things. Those are the guys typically that you would build brands for. But I realized I need to show them I've done it for someone else, and no one is willing to take a bet on me. I might as well take a bet on myself. So I went on there. I was lucky enough to find a program at the time that I went through, about a week's program, truly, to just understand the intricacies of LinkedIn, how to navigate it. So I took that program. It gave me a good stepping stone. And then the beauty is, again, my background is in corporate comms and PR, to mean that I actually know how to tell stories. I'd love to think so. So I just went on there and started telling my own story. Went for the basics. What is a personal brand? Who can a personal brand, who would serve or who would benefit the most from a personal brand? What is my own story and what is my journey? Imagine I showed up every day consistently for, I think, a year, 8 months now, ever since I started doing it consistently. And as a result of building that brand, now I am seated hosting my own podcast. I have been able to work with clients, so many. I have been able to sit and train other young people because, again, for me, impact and building purpose driven personal brands is important for me. This means that beyond just showing you how to build your own brand, again, it goes back to, okay, fine, opportunities have come to you. Or now you have your own podcast. Now you can sit and moderate an event somewhere. Now someone is calling you as a key speaker to give a keynote at an event. Fine. Now you got a new job because they reached out to you on LinkedIn and said, hey, I think you'd be the perfect fit for this job. Okay, all that is great and all that is benefiting you, but how is that benefiting the people within your spheres of influence? People within your audiences, That's what I strive for the most. And yeah, this is about to sound like me marketing myself, but truly at Brand with DK, that is really what we focus on. Beyond us building your brand, we also ask the question, how is this personal brand that you have impacting the lives of those around you? That's key for me as the founder, and that's what we try to stress over at Brand with DK. Anyway, I digressed again. Back to building personal brands. After consistently communicating that for over a year, you actually realize now instead of me going to people's DMs, the CEO of and the CEO of this place and executive manager or director somewhere, and telling them, hey, I want to build your brand, they're the ones who now come to you and say, hi, Daisy, I've been seeing you consistently talking about building personal brands. I've been seeing you giving tips on how to build personal brands. Could you maybe show me how I could build my own brand? Now, you see, already you have created, we say we don't try to catch butterflies. We actually grow a garden that will now attract butterflies. That essentially is the whole idea behind building a personal brand. Okay, so that is what happened, and that is how I was able to grow a whole entire company simply by sitting down and putting out content on LinkedIn. And now let me go back to you. You might find that your audiences, you're probably gifted as a makeup artist, and your audiences, are likely on LinkedIn, but are also likely to be on other platforms as well. What you need to do, let's now take a run through of how or the steps that you need to take when building your personal brand. You now, as my audience, this is what you do. Number one, first of all, understand what it is that you genuinely enjoy doing. Because let me give an example. If, say, I wanted to start building a personal brand right now around climate and sustainability, yes, that's what is going on, and that is what people are funding, and that is where the opportunities are currently. But if it's not something that I'm passionate about, not to say that I am not passionate about conserving the environment and climate and sustainability, I am. But if it's not something that I consistently talk about over and over, then it's not sustainable for me when building a personal brand. So it has to be, because I can't come and talk about it today and tomorrow and next week. By the time we get to day 3, I'm done. Like, just cut the show, take me out, I'm done. However, if it is something that you are actually genuinely passionate about, then you can consistently create content about it because it's something you enjoy doing anyway, right? For example, I love being around people, right? I love having conversations with diverse people. I love hearing people's stories, no matter where they're from. So every day, it's easy for me to just come and talk about my experiences, talking to people from different areas, different backgrounds, etc. Right? So you see, that is what makes it easy for you to build a personal brand. Identifying what your areas of strengths are. Then identifying what it is that you're good at. And you don't have to be perfect at anything. You just have to be somewhat good, or at least have an interest. That's enough. Because we say we educate those behind us, but learn from those who've gone ahead. I don't know everything about communications and PR. I know a little, but that little is what I'm sharing with my audiences. And over time, that little becomes a little more, then a little more, then a little more. And the more it becomes more, the more I also communicate and educate those behind me, right? So even if you're still in campus, like I was using that example and I said, you could be seated in class and today you've just learned one concept. Come and talk to us about that one concept that you know. There's someone who does not know that one concept that you know, truly, right? So identify what it is that you're pretty good at or you find interesting and would love to talk about and even explore more. And we also just take the learn as you go approach. Just come today. I can guarantee you your first video will be work. Have you seen the Get to Know Daisy video that is the first video on the Growing Out Loud podcast? Have you seen that video? It's also likely that if you scroll down and see my very first LinkedIn post, it looks very humbling, is the word. But again, embarrassment is the price of entry. So you cannot, I say this often, you cannot get to 100 without starting from 1, then 2, then 10, then 50, then 100. Those steps, you actually have to take them. As painful as they may be, you have to take them. So you see, if you're building a brand around something that you enjoy, then even if you're struggling, it won't, okay, yeah, you'll struggle through it, but you'll also enjoy the process. And that's the whole idea behind building a personal brand. And remember, when we're building brands, we have to be authentic. So if it's not something, again, that you enjoy doing, we can see it through the screen. We can see it even in your content, because we can tell this person just went to ChatGPT and told it to give them a title, and that's the title that they came and put out, right? Now, to help you not go off tangent when you're building your brand, it's important for you to have something we call content pillars. Pillars could be maybe like big topics or themes or values that your whole content revolves around. I'll give you an example, my own example, right? So for me, currently I'm in a space where I'm growing a company, right? I am a podcaster. I am extremely interested in all matters to do with personal development. And I also talk about personal branding, and I talk about business branding. Oh, wow. Okay, there's a lot. But you see, when now I'm creating content, it centers around these 3, 4, 5 pillars. Today, I'll talk about my experience podcasting. That could be what the conversation the guest and I had that day. It could be how humbling it is to start a podcast. It could be what opportunities have I gotten as a result of starting a podcast. You see, there's already like 3, 4 things you can talk about with regard to just podcasting. Then what is it like as an entrepreneur, especially as a young entrepreneur in Kasongo's economy? What does that look like exactly? Is whatever I'm doing able to pay my bills? If they're not paying my bills, how am I maybe adapting? Today you get a client, tomorrow you lose a client. The other day you get a client, the other day you lose a client. Why am I losing clients? Why am I getting clients? How can I ensure that I don't lose as much clients, right? That's another whole different like subtopics you could talk about with that regard. Then, like I said, I like matters to do with personal development. So today, probably I'll come and talk about the Pomodoro technique. Does that help me work? Probably. Tomorrow, I'll talk about burning out and what you do when you're burnt out. The other day, I'll talk about, am I really lazy or am I just burnt out? The other day, I'll talk about maybe changing environments to make yourself more productive. You see, those are already so many subtopics under personal development that you can talk about. Then the other time I come again and talk to you about personal branding, and we talk about our areas of strengths, and we talk about how difficult sometimes it is to show up, but you do anyway. And we talk about being vulnerable when you're building personal brands. You see? So in as much as it feels like I'm putting out so much of my life out there, when you truly think about it, you realize that it is packaged or it is structured in a certain way. And that's the entire idea behind how to build a personal brand. And you see, again, it all goes back to authenticity, because people can tell. People can tell if you're bullshitting them. People can tell if you're being genuine. People can tell even if you're learning and pretending that you know it all, yet you don't, or if you're being honest with what your experience and what your journey has been like. And to be very honest, it's not about you. It's actually always about the other person, right? Because remember, at least when you sit with me at Brand with DK or with me as Daisy Keter, it is more, what we're talking about more is how is it that you are impacting or just changing someone's lives or just changing their perspective or anything or just making someone better. It's more about that than it is about yourself. So in as much as yes, we share our stories, we don't share them for, oh, look at me and just clap at me, I'm doing so well. Okay, fine, fair, you're doing so well. But how is that changing? Or how is that being impactful to someone else? And that's this distinction between building personal brands and just putting yourself out there to be getting claps from people. And you see, if that's what you're chasing, if you're chasing a high, then that may not be very sustainable. Because as we know, today guys could be in people's good books, and tomorrow you say something and they decide this is the worst, right? So if you are chasing a high, then it means that your entire building your brand ends there, right? So that's why it goes back to authenticity, and it also goes back to what are you actually genuinely putting out to the world. And lately, we've been talking about, or rather, I've been having conversations again with my clients. Okay, I'll say that often because that's what my life revolves around nowadays. I'm mostly just with clients, or I'm back at home working on clients' work. So I'll give that as context more often than not. Actually, today I put up a post and I realized I went to an event, a marketers' night out, some 2, 3 weeks back. And it was interesting to see how other people are just sat with their colleagues and having inside jokes. And then I realized, Guy Daisy, but then you actually, do you have colleagues? Probably the people who are part of my team. And since this is a growing company, there's what, 3, 4 at most. So my points of reference truly is, I guess, my clients, but also just to throw you off tangent just a bit. You see, when you're building people's personal brands, it's quite and I've said this before, it's quite an intimate process because you now get to understand deeply what their story is, what drives them, what their values are. Oh, this is not off tangent, it's actually relevant. You need to understand what your values are because that is what you'll center your personal brand around. I talk to these people, and more often than not, people who are seeking my personal branding services are people who actually have a story. Not to say that you don't have a story at any point that you have, but for you to probably afford personal branding services, you've done 1, 2, 3 things that have gotten you to a certain level. So just hearing the stories that these people have to say and just their perspectives of the world and really quite enriches me. But you realize that a lot of personal branding is actually beyond just showing up online and talking about certain things. A huge chunk of it is also relationship building, which is, and I should have mentioned this, when you're building your personal brand, you show up, it's how you show up both online and offline. If I present as a bubbly, friendly person online, and then you meet me in person and meet someone who's arrogant, for example, and does not even want to speak to people, then it means that there's a mismatch of your personal brand, right? But now that takes me back to personal brands is also how people remember you. Remember what people say about you when you're not in the room? It's about how people experience you, right? And this is where relationship building comes in because you have to genuinely be interested in what the other person has to say, right? You have to genuinely be there to just listen and just form a connection of sorts, right? And sometimes if it's forced, fine, it does not have to be. But if it feels natural, then good to go. You're good to go, right? So just to give a recap of what it looks like when you're building a personal brand, first of all, understand what your story is. Where have you come from? Where are you trying to go? How are you going to communicate this with your audiences? What is it that you're looking for? Are you looking to attract business opportunities? Are you looking to attract and maybe another job? What is your goal? Understand what your goal is. Understand what your content pillars are so that you don't throw yourself off tangent, so that when people think about you, it's just certain principles that come to mind, right? And then simply just show up. Gravitate towards failure. I know that sounds funny and that sounds counterintuitive, but I remember actually when we attended the Youth Plus event and Vusi was speaking, he talked about what is your pain tolerance. Because when you're building brands and just generally developing yourself as a person, it's all about meeting challenges and trying to overcome them, right? Sometimes you fail. Actually, you'll fail more times than you will succeed if you're being honest. But the more you fail, the more you learn, right? So that is the case even when building your personal brands. Sometimes you might say something and hey, it is not received well. And okay, fine, fair. You go back to the drawing board and you come back better and stronger, right? Yeah, so and remember to enjoy the process and be your most authentic self. And that, I guess, is just a brief snapshot of what I do and what my work is like as a personal branding consultant. And in the event, you need personal branding. You want to start growing your personal brand and you don't know where to start from, please feel free to reach out to us at Brand with DK. You could start by reaching out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Daisy Keter on LinkedIn. You could also just leave a comment or a DM on any of our social media platforms, Growing Out Loud, and just ask, okay, so how do we go about this? Trust that we will hold your hand. Thank you for just listening and staying up until the end of this episode. It's been lovely to have you. Please feel free to share your feedback, even your own experience with building your brand. Have you built a brand? Are you trying to build one? What is it that is scaring you or making you not build one? And if you have already, what has your journey been like? What is your experience? Let's just keep this conversation going. If you can tell, yeah, I can talk about this all day. So with that said, thank you, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Bye.